The first thought is that K-pop stans, when promoting groups as Nugu, promote the same list of groups as Nugu, which I've said before makes them fake, since they don't seem like they'd wanna support Nugus if they fall under cheap, and will mainly support and promote Nugus if they have better budgets. I wanted to talk more on that these K-pop stans promote the same groups as Nugu every time in their Nugu videos, and every time a new group comes along to promote as so-called Nugu, even if they may not be, it's again a bigger, better budgeted group. So, with the groups y'all promote as Nugu and not everyone being Nugu that y'all promote, what would it take for y'all to say, they're not Nugu anymore, I'm gonna stop promoting them as such? Because if it's, for example, their lack of sales which makes you promote them as Nugu, even though you don't bother to check their sales, which would help you a lot to see if they're Nugu or not, how much sales would you want them to have for them to not be Nugu in your eyes anymore? Where's the point for you? Because if you use a certain group's popularity, for example, maybe like Red Velvet or IVE, for them to be considered not Nugu anymore, isn't that too high of a reaching point for these groups to not be promoted as Nugu anymore? Also, if these so-called Nugu groups are making a decent amount of sales, but you still see them as Nugu even if their sales say otherwise, do you think that group not making sales as high as popular groups like Stacy, Everglow, or even higher like IVE, Red Velvet, Twice, NewJeans, it means they're unsuccessful? You're telling me that a group whose sales are pretty good and maybe getting better each time are still Nugu because they're not on the same level as popular groups? How are these groups still Nugu if their sales are good enough each time, if people keep promoting them in Nugu videos every time because they come to mind first and such? What will it take for you guys to stop with adding them to Nugu videos to show that you guys actually give a damn about Nugus, and don't just pretend to care about them to feel quirky, when you should just give up at this point? You see only groups with millions of streams for their music on streaming services and YouTube, and millions of sales, which they're guaranteed to get, as popular, and anyone else not following suit, even if they're on the right path to popularity and are more known than before, are Nugu. Like, be so for real. Do you just claim these groups as Nugu because you don't wanna see them getting success? Because you maybe think, oh, they're Nugu and they're better, and think that once these groups get popularity they'll become generic. K-pop moves forward, so many groups make new songs every chance they get, New Year's come along and new Nugu videos come out, but why are only the same groups added into this mix every time? Which makes me wonder, are they growing in your eyes because so many new videos come up on Nugu groups by K-tubers, but yet people keep adding the same groups that were called Nugu in Nugu videos months ago or a year or so ago, into these new Nugu videos made currently? It makes me wonder if people actually check how well they're doing each time to know, are they still the same Nugus as they were the last time they were called Nugu? Or do they just follow the same steps of making Nugu videos that don't involve research but rather just naming groups that would typically be found in these videos? Another thing with these videos of y'all claiming certain groups as Nugu without checking first, would y'all stop considering certain groups Nugu once others also start doing so too, which would be herd mentality? Because you guys seem to be getting your research from the same list passed around to different K-pop stans who use that list for Nugu-based content, and would your Nugu-based content only change once the list is changed? Also, for the groups that you see as popular, what makes them different that you cannot call them also Nugu as well? Why not just call Blackpink Nugu, for example, despite them breaking records and stuff? You say it's so easily for groups who've tried so hard and are doing better in their careers, continuing to grow, on the right path to being popular fully. It's not impossible for you to do so, since you throw around the Nugu word so easily. Also, you calling these groups Nugu without drawing a line, it shows what message you're trying to send to others, that they're flops, because you're ignoring their growth. And also, what if these so-called Nugu groups are celebrating achievements that they get that are amazing for them, but you're still calling them Nugus? It shows me that you don't value success, because look at it. You complain about K-pop and mainly bring the mainstream popular groups into arguments to justify your complaints, right? So, maybe you keep calling certain groups Nugus constantly even when they're not, because maybe you don't have a popularity point for them to reach to be not Nugu anymore, and show that they've truly made it, because maybe you don't want to keep one, since if you do, you'd realize how close they are to reaching that point, which would make them come into the mainstream sphere, making them a part of your complaints for K-pop, because they'll become just like the other popular groups you criticize. I think you don't have a point because you want them to stay a hidden gem, even when they're not, because you probably think their music is better than most popular groups, and so them becoming popular, their music will start going downhill. I'm not sure about this part that I just talked about, but it could be a good reason y'all don't wanna see success to stop considering groups as nugu anymore, to properly make nugu videos and stand support real nugus. The next thought is that, so, I made a previous unscripted rant video on fake K-pop stans and nugu promoter. For context, the image of the post is on screen. Nugu promoter made a post on Instagram listing down a bunch of girl group images in a collage format with a caption in the image that I don't remember what the caption said. They added Purple Kiss as one of the girl groups in the collage, and as you know, if Nugu promoter promotes someone, then that artist is Nugu in their eyes. Also, Purple Kiss isn't Nugu and is far beyond Nugudom, and to me are mid-tier. And so even seeing Nugu promoter promote them as such makes me so annoyed. I was annoyed at seeing their picture on the post, and so I made a short rant-style comment on the post, and someone had the audacity to reply to my comment saying, "Relax a little there buddy, it's not a big deal." If it's not a big deal, then why don't you call Blackpink, IVE, LE SSERAFIM, Red Velvet, Twice, Sistar, Baby Monster, 2NE1 etc. Nugu as well. I just hate that most K-pop stans don't even know or bother about the middle tier. Like when you walk up 5 steps. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and even if you skip steps it's 1, 3, 5. You don't just go from 1 to 5 without walking in between. Also, if Nugu promoter were to one day promote say Blackpink as Nugu on their account and you got mad at them for that, like many others would, then you have no right to get mad at them for this, considering you have no issues when other non-Nugu most likely mid-tier groups get promoted as Nugu and you say nothing. If you were a real Nugu fan not for the aesthetics, then you'd call this type of thing out, but you don't. When K-pop stans promote these certain groups as Nugu when they're not Nugu at all, how can they be considered Nugus when their sales, music video views, music streaming platform streams are much better than actual Nugus who would die to even get a fraction of the views, sales, streams a non-Nugu most likely mid-tier group got for one album, song or more than one album, song? How is Purple Kiss a Nugu group, and comparable to girl groups like Maka Maka for example who debuted in 2020, who may have silently disbanded? Both groups released songs after debut and lasted quite a bit, but comparing both groups, who comes to mind first? Purple Kiss of course. Also, Purple Kiss have 253,018 monthly listeners on Spotify, and Maka Maka have 1,391 monthly listeners on Spotify. While monthly listeners may not be the best stats to compare, it still shows how far Purple Kiss have gotten to get that many monthly listeners. Purple Kiss have song streams in millions, YouTube and Spotify, for more than one song, but for Maka Maka the only million they have is for their I Am music video on YouTube. If you wanna talk Nugus, then pull up the data to support your claims of calling someone like Purple Kiss Nugu, because ask a smart person who knows music analysis and things related to properly answer your question, and they'll definitely disagree, and the two with the hard cold unsugar-coated truth to burst your so-called Purple Kiss or Nugu bubble, and shatter your I like Nugus K-pop stan self. You guys need a reality check slap on your face so you can stop living in Deluluval. The next thought is that, I don't understand K-pop stans complaining about so many different things in K-pop, like for example short songs even though solutions exist. And if those solutions don't exist amongst popular or known groups, soloists and bands, or even amongst B-sides by popular or known groups, soloists and bands, then it'll exist amongst Nugus and mid-tier groups, bands, soloists or B-sides. I don't understand why if I were to tell you that these things exist and you have to search for it, that you'd reply back with something like, we shouldn't have to search for it. I mean, if you're not gonna search for it and then later promote these things that you find, then how are you gonna send a message to companies about what you want? Because y'all are just here blaming companies like they're 100% at fault, when you're at fault too for doing nothing about it. Nothing helps by complaining about 5 to 6 trending songs as if they make the whole industry while ignoring the rest of the industry like they don't exist. That just shows me that y'all complain but don't actually only want solutions. But rather y'all want solutions that are all up in your face and trending. If it was truly about just wanting things more in K-pop, then you'd be digging to find the solutions and not crying because you think it's not there. Y'all constantly complaining doesn't benefit you, because saying, songs are getting shorter, talking about the same, TikTok viral garbage, nonsense and wanting longer songs without clearly saying what you want just keeps recycled thoughts on this topic into circulation. If you care so much about really wanting long songs, then boycott short songs, stop talking about short songs constantly and find and promote only long songs. That's the best solution. Change only happens if you put in the work. It doesn't happen from making a hot takes, I'm mad at K-pop company's angry face emoji. And I'm sure as hell it doesn't come from stumbling on a long K-pop song and complimenting the length of the song in the comments, because if that song is long but popular, saying things about its length in the comments is just one comment upon thousands of others who are there just talking about the song and enjoying it. If you, however, take the song and shove it into people who want long songs' faces, now that's a different story and a step in the right direction. The next thought is that, related to the previous take about K-pop stans' complaints, where if I would say, these things exist and you have to search for it, and you guys respond with the, we shouldn't have to search for it. With you guys responding that way, what's the point of those songs which are solutions existing in general? What's the point of any songs outside of what's trending if you just don't care for their existence? Y'all complain about K-pop not being about the music anymore, songs being short and such, with these complaints in the end tying to viral trendy music only, since that's what your complaints direct towards, which shows me that you guys only look at trending songs despite how much you hate them. If you're here complaining but looking at only viral songs, then what are you actually listening to musically in K-pop? Because some of the things you complain about attacks the music, and if things like short songs and K-pop not being about the music anymore annoy you, then you must be listening to songs that are long and make K-pop about the music, right? Because if you are, then where's your promotion of them? I clearly am not seeing that much, other than you complaining about K-pop currently and comparing it to older K-pop. It can't be possible that there's nothing from newer K-pop that you're not listening to because of complaints, because you're still here complaining about K-pop, which means you're still listening to newer K-pop, to find something new to complain about each time, and haven't left K-pop yet if newer K-pop disappoints you that much. Plus, if you're complaining about newer K-pop thinking older K-pop was better, then you'd go to promoting older K-pop songs solely, and so are you only doing that? If not, then what are you doing as a K-pop stan besides complaining, if everything I point out about you doesn't exist on your channel? Who are your complaints for if your actions speak otherwise? If you guys say, we shouldn't have to search for them, then does that mean anything outside of viral songs requires deep searching and time, which would mean you saying that shows that you don't want to search because you're lazy, and that also shows how much easier you find it to complain. If you have time to complain about everything new to hate about K-pop, in terms of the music, then you have time to search up songs beyond trendy ones. So much of what you'd defend yourself for, to keep your complaints valid and justified in the end, can be argued by nuance, and you'll end up being pushed to the corner because you can't escape anymore. You did this to yourself the moment you opened your mouth and spoke without knowing what you're saying. The next thought is that, I saw an opinion that said, some concepts are only praised because a big company released it, and also I've heard people say, if this song was released by a popular group it would be a hit, and I was wondering. Because when people talk about popular groups and bigger companies and compare them to less popular groups, smaller companies, in the context of the two examples that I gave above, the smaller companies groups they talk about are of course better budgeted companies who can do these types of concepts or songs for K-pop stans to have something to compare bigger groups to. Actual smaller budgeted companies and groups wouldn't be able to do these types of songs or concepts, and y'all wouldn't be comparing them at all to these bigger groups and companies. And y'all say these things about concepts only getting praise because of a bigger company. And that is true, but to an extent, because if we have huge labels like the Big 3 plus Hybe, then of course we can get more of a push because people will instantly check it out due to the company being popular and also due to people company standing, but there are also so many other companies that have good budgeting as well, and they might be bigger companies, but even with that company backing it, the concept, financially, it could still flop. And looking at the other part of songs being a hit if a popular group released it, and way to state the obvious, because the popular group releasing the song will of course be a hit. They're a popular group to begin with, and fans eat anything the group releases even if it's trash. Also, I just realized that when y'all talk about these things with bigger companies and popular groups, y'all are talking about company group status, which are the reason these things happen to begin with, for y'all to comment on them. So what exactly are y'all comparing with, bigger versus smaller, when with the bigger companies and popular groups, y'all are not just talking about the group itself or the company size and budget, and with the smaller part, y'all are not talking about actual smaller groups and labels, because again, some of the labels you may list as examples could be bigger in size. The concept got praised because the company built a reputation for itself and became so known that they cannot be forgotten, and the popular group releasing the song and it becoming a hit is because the group became so popular that any of their releases are hits, title tracks that is. The next thought is that, Dadri debuted under JYPE's sub-label, and to me the song is a traditional Korean music sound with traditional sounding vocals, but also has a K-pop feel, which I think that's what Dadri was going for. Now, the take I wanted to make is about K-pop stans complaining about so many K-pop things. K-pop stans complain about more English in songs than Korean, and lack of bridges, and about short songs too, but this song has more Korean, and a bridge. 계속해서 사라지는 꿈 불러봐도 메아리 많죠 너는 운명 같은 꿈 웃어 보이리라 털어버리리라 흰 노래를 날리라. And also this song is structured in a way that it doesn't sound short at all, despite its length. Also, y'all be complaining about minors debut more and adults debut less, but now that Dadri exists, there's no escape from just ignoring groups, even coming from a bigger known label's sub-label, because both members are adults, with one being 2001 and the other being 2004. Plus, y'all also complain about K-pop being boring and not about the music anymore, but looking at Dadri's debut, the song feels like it was cared for properly and made to be a song, and not made to be dumb catchy viral hot garbage TikTok trending. They also maybe have good vocal talent as well, IDK yet, since I have to see their vocals live, but knowing JYPE and them debuting good vocalists more than once, it won't be surprising, and being able to sing traditionally also requires skill. So, I hope that you guys are watching this, Dadri's song that is, and promoting it for its good qualities, because I'm sure if it were the negatives of any song, you'd be ever ready to name many examples and also be ever ready to blame companies, especially big ones. Someone like JYPE did this, even if it's the sub-label, but it's still someone from a bigger well-known label, the Big Three, and also within a title track and not even a B-side that will go unnoticed. Plus, it's also a group and not even bands or soloists that people forget about exist when they complain. So, there's so many reasons this group can be promoted more for all the right reasons if y'all even bother to look at them and give them their due praise so we can move forward as a K-pop stan society. But even if you don't care enough to do this too, served to you directly on a platter, then IDK what to think anymore with you K-pop stans who come after companies for no reason when they still do what you want with music. And yet you blame them as if they're the problem when you don't look, and purposefully ignore their songs that do what you want, but rather only focus on the songs that don't do what you want, and act like these companies are ruining things, when you yourself are ruining things by purposefully ignoring those tracks which end up being forgotten in the complaints discourse, because if they're ever brought up, then you'll end up looking dumb for ever complaining in the first place. The next thought is that, IDK, if anyone has explored this angle to this take, and I don't even know if I've explored this angle yet, but let's talk about the overused opinion, you don't have to like every song your faves release, and it's true. Why force yourself to like every song from your fave artist if they're diverse, doing different sounds and genres, and also if you have different tastes, music preferences and such? You liking every song your faves release is 100% possible, because I genuinely do like every song for some of my faves, but it can't be possible that you're here liking every song thinking it's a hit, even if the song could be a boring chill song that goes nowhere or a loud noisy ear-hurting B-side that does too much. I would understand more if it's an artist who's more consistent in terms of genre, doing mainly one genre, R&B for example, with different types of R&B, because then we can understand you. But for an artist who is diverse, I don't know about that, considering you might be a K-pop stan who defends every release of theirs, which at that point I'm not even sure if you're really listening to the music at all. Various different music genres and sounds etc. exist for a reason, because lots of people drift more towards certain sounds than others, and that's normal. If you look at me, I like any genre, any type of music, any language, any vocal type, anything as long as it hits, but I have preferences in music where my top genres are EDM, indie, ballad and Afro, with also me liking chill vibes even related to chill aesthetic music. Those are my preferences, and with my top genres being those, it doesn't automatically mean that any ballad, for example song that releases in any language, power ballad or soft chill soothing ballad, will be automatically liked by me. I'm not gonna save every ballad song that I come across because not every ballad song is for me, and that's why you don't have to like every song your faves release, because it's human to have your own tastes in music. It's human to prefer how some artists go about a genre, sound, vibe etc. compared to others. Music is meant to be enjoyed and not used as a toy that you play with till it breaks. You liking every song your faves release, but it's due to them being your faves and not because you enjoy their music in general, then you're not really supporting your faves. Because they might be working extremely hard on a song only for you to like it because it was released by them and not because of the song itself. I don't think you'd care about the song if it was released by someone else. Also, how can we really tell you like all their songs if you're maybe saying the same words of praise in different fonts for each comeback? If you're liking every song by your faves despite the diversity, then that means every song is perfect, which means they're the best artists ever, which means you saying that, you're knowledgeable on their music to know every song is a hit, which also means you possibly objectively think they're the best, which makes you better and worth listening to than actual music reviewers and critiquers who might say otherwise. The last thought is that, I feel like K-pop stans don't wanna accept certain groups as getting to the mainstream level and they keep calling them noogas, because who are these K-pop stans gonna compare big groups to when they say, noogas make better music? Even if these groups aren't noogas at all. Also, you can't even compare these groups to popular groups as, noogu versus popular, because you're not even comparing actual music. You're comparing budget because firstly, there are no actual noogas being compared. Especially ones with a lack of budget, with bigger popular groups to actually show that. Because as I said before about K-pop stans not caring about groups if they're cheap, so these comparisons would not even happen if any of the groups or songs compared was made by an actual noogu group, not in the K-pop stans' eye view for them to notice the group, basically a group that is deeper on the noogu iceberg and actually sinking deep and reaching the bottom, and not a group floating at the top where the group stops being noogu anymore. Also, how did I just notice this when I've been speaking on noogu, mid-tier and fake noogu stans quite a lot before, but I've noticed that you trying to make an argument where you'd compare noogas to popular groups. Then the argument to begin with falls apart the moment you name the groups you'd put as noogu for comparing, because in reality you're comparing mid-tier artists, so even when you're looking at budget disguised as looking at music, you're actually just looking at the mid-tier without realizing it, which makes you being a noogu stan also fake, because you're more likely, if we're going by proper terminology, a mid-tier stan. There's no noogu stanning happening from your end to even call yourselves noogu stans to even make this comparison in the first place. So, what would noogas make better music even refer to, if none of what you are, or say is noogu related? Also, if mid-tier groups get labeled noogu, then does that mean actual noogas need to reach mid-tier level before they get the noogu label put onto them? What would you label them before their mid-tier status? Because surely you not knowing real noogas should mean the noogu label applies to them more, right? But maybe if we go back to these, maybe I'm in the wrong for constantly calling you out for being fake noogu stans. Maybe my vast noogu knowledge, even including the most hard to find groups in the industry because I randomly discovered them one day, doesn't apply here. Maybe I, a noogu expert who can name 100 actual noogu girl and boy groups separately excluding the same list of groups y'all promote as noogu, I'm wrong and know nothing. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe all those videos I make especially focused on noogu and lesser known songs, doing extensive research and also recalling ones from memory too, don't exist. Maybe I'm the problem and all of you guys are 100% spitting facts when y'all call certain groups noogu, and finally maybe these groups' achievements of doing better each time either doesn't exist, or whatever exists is a lie and falsified. Maybe all of these are the case, and I should just accept it, right? Also, if this looks like I'm trying to say I'm better than other K-pop stans, I'm of course doing so. I am better than most K-pop stans because if I didn't care so much about Nugus, I would be parroting what most K-pop stans parrot, and I wouldn't call this out constantly each time with new angles and thinking. I care about Nugu artists, and I will constantly call out your fake ass because it brings out two things that I love the most, Nugus and unsugar-coated K-pop stan callouts because they really need to hear the harsh truth.
I hope you live with peace now.